Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reignite. It's been a while, I know, I apologise, but we are back with a brilliant guest today. You are going to love this guy. When I read quotes like these, we endeavour to make a huge rock and roll noise, and we make 21st century psychobilly voodoo. That's somebody who I was very, very interested to have on the show. So I would like you to welcome SLF, Stiff Litle Fingers drummer, Zed Hedz head honcho, try saying that after a few, songwriter, author, multi-instrumentalist, Steve Grantley. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Cathy. How are you? Nice to be
here. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very well. Yeah. How are you?
Have you got? Oh, I'm doing great, mate. Have you got your cup of tea at the ready?
I have got a cup of tea at the ready. Yeah.
Lovely, excellent stuff. That's something I was just going to ask you. Having set up the show today, we've come upstairs and locked the cats in the front room, because if we ever try and do this with the cats around, they knock everything over. Have you got any pets?
I haven't got any pets because I'm away touring a lot, so I haven't got any pets.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to cats. They bring on hay fever symptoms.
Oh no!
But my old mum has got a little Bichon Frise dog, so called Molly. Oh. So yeah. But I can't have pets because it's just difficult to get people to look after them while I'm away and stuff. So yeah, so I don't. But I am actually an animal lover. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen lots of your posts actually about animals. I'm always following you on the old Facebook and Insta.
Oh right, yeah. Gets me into trouble every now and again.
Yeah. Well, you got to say what you got to say, and you got your opinions on stuff, and we're all entitled to them, aren't we?
I'm not really trying to berate anybody or wag a finger. Yeah. I'm just going, have you seen this? Sometimes I think, and I have actually had, I'm honoured because I have actually had 5 people write to me and say, I've become vegan from watching your posts. So, but I'm not some big evangelist for veganism. I don't actually really like the word vegan. I think it conjures up so many connotations. I'm plant-based and I love animals, but not just the cute furry ones. I love all animals. Right? I see no difference between a dog and a pig, or a cat and a sheep, or a cow. I don't see. I see them all as sentient beings, and I wouldn't eat any of them. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
No, it never comes across like that with you. I think you're just raising a point and making people aware of it. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I try because sometimes, I saw things and I thought, before I became a vegan, I saw things. I thought, well, I didn't know they did that. I didn't know they were treated like that. So yeah, I just think it's in if it gets one person to change their mind or even think a little bit more deeply about what they're eating and how they eat, then that's a good thing. But I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to sit there and be an evangelist for veganism. That's not who I am.
Nah, don't worry. It doesn't come across like that at all. It does. It just makes you stop and think. And sometimes that's all people need, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, we've got people in the chat popping up there. Hello, Naomi. Well, I was vegan for a while. Okay. So we've got Naomi popped in from Germany. I think I saw Anders who's popped in from Sweden. Somebody there, Neil. Do you know Neil?
Yeah, Neil's like he's a contributor on my Facebook page and stuff. He's always making, so it's good to have Neil on board.
Wonderful. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome along, Neil. So, right, what we're going to do then, because we've got a lot of things to talk about. Well, hello, Denise. We've got somebody coming in from Las Vegas now as well. Wow. We're international right now, Steve.
International,
we really are. So what we're going to say, because we've got so much to talk about, because you've done so many things so far in your life. But I want to go back to the beginning. I want to know, how did it all start for you? How did you get into music in the early stages of your life?
I started off banging on pots and pans. That's how I started, with I just had this affinity for making noise like all kids. But I just took it to the next degree. Got bongos when I was 4. There was always an acoustic guitar in the house. There was always a little piano that I used to mess about on. But I was very drawn to the drums. And my dad was a big jazz fan. and there was always music in the house. So I grew up listening to jazz records. My dad was a drummer fan. He loved drummers, and he always used to say to me, "Watch the drummer, listen to the drummer." And I think maybe I became a drummer because I wanted to please my dad, but I did have like a natural ability to a certain degree. You know, I picked it up quite quickly. So that's where it started. It was all, and like most of us, I grew up listening to my parents' records before, you know, when I got to about 11 or 12, I started branching out and listening to, you know, things that were in the pop charts that maybe my parents didn't listen to. And that would have been like glam rock in the early 70s, you know, David Bowie and then Elton John and then The Who and Led Zeppelin. That was so it was a slow process. So that's where I started, and then just hung out with local lads who were, you know, budding musicians too. And we started a band.
So God, you said about your parents and their taste in music. See, I grew up, my parents, it was very much Elvis, and then the likes of sort of Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly. Are your parents in that kind of ilk, or?
No, they weren't actually. They weren't as cool as that. My mum and dad was more the crooners. My mum and dad were probably slightly older than your parents. So what it was Tony Bennett and Frank Sinatra and Andy Williams, Shirley Bassey, Tom Jones, Ella Fitzgerald, and then it would be like Tommy Dorsey big band, Ted Heath big band, which is a British big band. So it was more big band jazz and the crooners for me. And I sort of discovered rock and roll, proper rock and roll on my own, you know, Gene Vincent and people like that. I sort of just discovered those through reading the music press and stuff, and wanted to check them out and seeing old documentaries and stuff and being really attracted to that sound. But yeah, mum and dad, I suppose the most modern thing that mum and dad were into was probably the Beatles. They'd be on every now and again, but no rock and roll stuff. I had to find that for myself.
Well, Frank Sinatra is somebody like me who goes to Vegas a lot. He's still a big noise in Vegas. Oh, Frank, you gotta love him. We were actually talking about the crooners the other day, remembering people like Val Doonican. Do you remember him?
Oh, I remember Val Doonican. I mean, he was a big star, you know, in the 1970s with his rocking chair and his acoustic guitar. He did great things.
Yeah, loved what he did. So he used to be on a Saturday night in his rocking chair in his little jumper.
Yeah, his cardigans. He was famous for his cardigans.
That's it, yeah.
But I know. Yeah, so that was it was very sort of standard 1950s big band stuff that I originally started listening to. That was the first thing I was exposed to. I mean, I'd love to have been exposed to, you know, Eddie Cochran and stuff, but like I say, I found that later on my own.
Yeah, I had a weird upbringing. My parents downstairs with Eddie Cochran and Elvis, and my brother next door banging out the Sex Pistols. So, you know.
Yeah. It was weird, you know, in 70, well, I tell you what, it's weird that you should say that. In 77, I mean, Never Mind the Bollocks is probably my favorite rock and roll album of all time. And I just think it's an immense piece of work. They didn't really know the consequences of they didn't know what a brilliant album that was. They just did what they do, and it turned out that way. But if I wasn't listening in 77, if I wasn't listening to the Sex Pistols, then I was downstairs listening to my dad's ABBA's greatest hits records. And I'm still a big ABBA fan, and I think that anybody who wants to learn how to write songs, listen to ABBA, because the songs are brilliant. You might not like the image, you might think that the songs are sweet and sugary, but you listen to them in depth, and there's some great stuff in the ABBA catalogue. So yeah, I was flipping from, you know, full on Sex Pistols, punk rock, and then I was listening to ABBA. But I thought it was quite punk rock back in the day to even listen to ABBA, because punk rock's about doing exactly what you want to do, not about following the crowd, not about wearing a leather jacket. So I felt like I was kind of being punk rock by listening to ABBA.
Exactly right. What do you reckon to the show they're doing now, where they're all the avatars that they're down in London? I'm still debating whether I want to go or not.
Oh, well, I do want to go. And I've not been, so I can't judge the show because I haven't been. And I'm looking. I am going to get tickets, and I am going to go. But all I know is that people who have been have come out and have just said fantastic things about it. So who knows? I mean, it has been said by many people, is that the future? You know, are we going to be watching avatars of the Rolling Stones in 100 years' time? or the Sex Pistols, or the Who, or Led Zeppelin. So you can almost go and have the live experience of seeing the band, even though they died 20 years ago. Is that going to happen? Because there's that thing with Elvis. There's an Elvis show where there's a live band playing and it's all synced to Elvis on the screen. And I know people who've been to see that and said within seconds you just feel like you're at an Elvis show. So
really,
perhaps it's the future. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to going to the ABBA thing, but I won't judge it until I go.
Yeah, oh, we'll have to stay in touch and you'll have to let me know how it is. It's one of those things. It's like I never saw them at the time, and it's going to be the only chance I get to see them. So it's almost irresistible, really.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see how they do it. I'm looking forward to seeing the tech. How involved in it you do feel. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I've wandered way off the point here, haven't I? Was this talking about you? I'm so sorry. So we were going back to the beginning of where we started. That's where we were at. So I read or I heard somewhere that your first job was it Thames TV in a big band?
Yeah, I mean the first. Well, I was in my little local band, right? Four local lads who were all pretty good at their instruments, and we were called the Gate Crashers, and we did demo tapes and all that stuff. I started to get drum lessons. So I've been playing since I was 11, and about 16 I got drum lessons. And then my drum teacher, he asked me to dep for him, so they called it being a deputy, right? So he said, listen, I've got this gig, it's with Thames Television, it's at Thames Television, Teddington Lock, where the studios are, and it's a rehearsal band. And that would mean that you would sit and play the drums so that all of the band can get used to what they're going to be doing later on in the week. Sometimes they go out and do live shows, sometimes it's live recordings. But rather than having a really expensive drummer come in and do that, they would get me because I was young and cheap. So I sat in for my drum teacher, and I worked with Thames Television for about a year and a half. But the good thing about that was that I was playing with guys who were twice my age. So I got used to music. It sounds a bit corny. It sounds a bit up my own arse, but I got used to musical discipline quite quickly, because if you didn't play stuff right, they would berate you. So it was very, let's put it this way, it's very much an adult environment. It wasn't suddenly I'd gone from playing with my mates and having a few beers while we're rehearsing, and now this is serious stuff. This is a professional situation. So I think it really helped me. It helped my professional growth really spurted at that time. It really helped. It really helped. So that was, and it was good to be playing a different kind of music as well. But I knew the music because they played all the stuff that my dad had been listening to. So
yeah, gave you a good head start on it there, then, didn't it?
It did. Well, the thing was that I couldn't read music very well. I could read basic beats and stuff, but they would put like I'd put the music up, and it would look like fly shit. It was like, oh, I can't read that. So they go, oh yeah, this is Begin to Begin. And I'd go, oh, well, I know that one because I've been listening to it since I was, 1 year old. And then, there was, Take the A Train and all that stuff. So I played by ear, and they thought I was a great reader. I was a terrible reader, but they thought I was a good reader because I was playing all the things and stopping in the right place. I wasn't even looking at the music. I was playing by ear. But that kind of all built up my confidence as a player, or as a bullshit artist.
What's that modern day expression they say, fake it till you make it?
Exactly. So, and they signed me up and I worked with them for a year and a half, so I must have been doing something right, but in the end I realized that I started to get a few more gigs off the back of that, and it was like 3-piece jazz gigs in a pub or a club somewhere, and I thought, is that what I really want to do? Do I want to be that guy? And I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to be a drummer in a rock and roll band. I wanted to be a drummer in a rock band. I wanted to be Keith Moon. I wanted to be John Bonham. I wanted to be Stuart Copeland. And so I stopped doing those shows because I felt that it was gonna take me away from my proper path.
Yeah. So they were the early big influences to you, people like John Bonham, Stuart Copeland.
Yeah, I mean, they are for most drummers. I don't think there's many drummers who weren't rock drummers who weren't influenced by John Bonham. It's a classic name to drop. But I didn't have any big brothers and sisters. I just listened to Led Zeppelin records and went, wow. I love the sound of it, like the production quality and what John was doing. Saw Keith Moon with his huge drums. When you're 12, who's not going to be influenced by that? You know, I'll tell someone else. As a kid, not so much now, but as a kid, Roger Taylor from Queen was quite a big influence as well.
Yeah, yeah. And now maybe I read this wrong, because you know what it's like. You go down rabbit holes and you do your research. And when you were saying people that influenced you, I read Lenny Kravitz. Now, are you telling me Lenny Kravitz was originally a drummer, or is it just Lenny Kravitz generally?
No, well, Lenny Kravitz plays drums on all his records. So
Does
that's
he?
Lenny.
See, look, you
Yeah,
see,
Lenny
I
plays.
never knew that.
Well, Lenny's very much like Prince. You know, he's that Lenny plays most of the instruments, if not all of them, apart from brass. Lenny, unless he's got like a guest guitar player like Slash or someone. So say Always on the Run, the Lenny Kravitz track, that's him playing drums. And Lenny is a really great drummer because he's dead straight and his time is lovely. He's really good at keeping time and keeping the groove. So I find that an influence. Stevie Wonder's the same. So Superstition, that's Stevie Wonder playing drums. So
what?
Yeah.
How do I not know these things?
So Stevie Wonder played drums on that, and so they're two tracks that when I'm practicing, I'll play along with those tracks because they've got such a lovely feel to them, and it's a lovely groove. And to me, although I'm influenced by Keith Moon and John Bonham, what I love the most is people who really play a great groove. And that was the thing about Bonham and Moon at times. They did have a good intrinsic groove. And when you listen to Lenny Kravitz, he's got a great groove.
Good, let's see, Reignite, you live and learn. That's why I have people like you on, you see, you're educating me. See, I always thought the likes of, I don't know, Phil Collins, Dave Grohl, well, you know, it's very unique, isn't it? Having a drummer become a frontman. There's more than I realised.
Yeah, I mean, Iggy Pop started out as a drummer.
What?
Iggy Pop was a drummer before he was a singer. Iggy Pop was a drummer. There's loads of those. You know, if you give me time to think, you can sort of like name one after the other. But Pete Townsend played live drums on all of his demos, and when you hear his demos, Pete Townsend's a great drummer. Paul McCartney's a great drummer. Paul McCartney played drums. And for most people, I think you probably noticed, Band on the Run. That's all Paul McCartney playing drums.
No, I did not know that.
You know Revolution by the Beatles, talk about a revolution? That's Paul McCartney on drums because Ringo wasn't around. So John and Paul were writing that together, and Paul McCartney just laid down the drums and they did the bass and guitars, and that's just Paul and John.
Bloody hell, I'm getting a musical education this afternoon, Mr. Grantley.
But people do think that, you know, I think the attitude with some people about drummers who come forward and write songs and do stuff, it's a bit like, what who do you think he is? Sit in the back, play the drums, work harder than everybody else, and keep your mouth shut and don't get above your station. Well, you know, so that's not really for me, you know. So,
no,
you know, and I think that I think you'll find that there's lots of people who are famous now who started off as drummers.
What's this comment I've just seen come up from my producer? Jerry Ramone was the band's original drummer. No, didn't know that either, darling. I am getting an education today. So anyway, right, fantastic. Let's move it along because I've realised I'm taking so much of your time and we haven't even got into the music properly yet. Well, we have because we're learning where it all started. So we're in the big band on Thames TV. You're starting to get little gigs here and there. How do we go from that transition, excuse me, I'll put my teeth in, to being with Jake Burns in Big Wheel?
And the Big Wheel in 1983. Well, what happened was I got my local band. You know, we were making demos and doing gigs, and you know, we weren't. You know, we were sending off demo tapes to record companies. That was what you did at the time, and inviting the A&R men down to gigs, and they wouldn't turn up. And in the end, I got sick of that. So I started answering adverts in the back of Melody Maker, which at the time, that music magazine was out every week and everybody bought it. And there was lots of adverts in the back of the magazine. So I saw this advert, and it was this wasn't the Jake Burns and the Big Wheel advert, but it kind of leads on to it. It just said big advert that said internationally successful band seek drummer must play reggae. And the only people I could think of, was the Clash. But I thought they're not going to advertise in Melody Maker. This is about 1982. They're not going to advertise in Melody Maker. So anyway, I phoned up and I got an audition, and I went down to a local recording studio in London, and played to tapes. And I said to the guys, "So who am I auditioning for?" And they said, "We can't tell you. Just go in there, put the headphones on, and we'll send a track through to you." So I'm sitting there with my headphones on, and the Magnificent Seven comes on. And I was like, this is the Clash. I'm auditioning for the Clash. So I played through. I thought, well, maybe not. Maybe it's just a track they're using to see if I can play in time and groove. And they said, that was great. That was brilliant. Now we're going to play to this, but pretend you're on stage and really go mad. And it was Complete Control by the Clash. And I thought, I'm auditioning for the Clash. Then the next thing they sent through was Rock the Casbah. And so I went into the control room. They said, okay, come in. Went into the control room. And they said, I said, I'm auditioning for the Clash, aren't I? And they said, we can't tell you. They said, fill out this form. And I had to fill out a form that said, what was the last record you purchased, which was Let's Dance by David Bowie. Who's your favourite band, which at the time was U2. Then it said, do you take drugs? I'm like, no, I don't take drugs. As if I would say yes on a form anyway. And so they said, right, here's the address. Come to this address tomorrow. It's in Olaf Street in Hammersmith. Come to this address and you'll meet the band. I said, it's the Clash, isn't it? And they went, we can't tell you. So anyway, I turn up at this studio, Olaf Street in Hammersmith at 10:30 in the morning. I walk through the door, and behind the glass, it's like a big recording studio with a big live room floor. Behind the studio glass is Paul Simonon and Joe Strummer. I'm auditioning for the Clash. I couldn't believe it. And so they had 700 phone calls. They had 300 people go down and play to tapes, and then they had 7 people go down and play with the band, and then it was reduced down to 2, me and the guy who got it. And I come really close. So I rehearsed with them for 2 weeks, me in the morning and Mark in the afternoon, but I eventually didn't get it because I rehearsed for 2 weeks with just Simonon and Strummer, and then Mick Jones flew in from America. I mean, I didn't know anybody who'd ever been to America. He flew in from New York. I didn't know anybody who'd ever been on a plane. My point is, it seemed really glamorous and really big time. And their manager was there, Bernie Rhodes, and there was Mickey Gallagher, the keyboard player from the Blockheads. He was working with them. He was there for the big audition, right? And Joe Strummer had already said to me, Steve, you're my man. He gave me a whole box of records to learn, so I didn't have all the albums. He gave me a list that I've still got of all the songs he wanted me to learn. He went, you're my man. You're from the street. You're my man. He said, just got to get through this last audition. So the first thing we did was Mick Jones went, right, let's do this one. What was it? We did. Shit. London Calling. There's this London Calling. It didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, bam, 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 and I didn't start. I wasn't on it. And he went, I usually have a drummer with me when I start this one, and my confidence just went. And I just made mistake after mistake. In fact, I dropped a drumstick, and Joe came over and went, "What's wrong, man? What's wrong?" And I just ballsed it up completely. I was completely freaked out by the flight in from New York, the Mickey Gallagher from the Blockheads, who I was a huge fan. The manager being there, and so I went home, and I knew I hadn't done well. I'd done really great in the week before, but I hadn't done well on the big thing, on the big audition. So the next day I got a phone call from Baker, who was their right-hand man, and he said, Steve, I said, I haven't got it, have I? It was 11 o'clock the next morning. So I haven't got it, have I? And he said, nah, sorry, mate. I said, I knew it. And he went, what happened? I went, mate, I just lost my confidence. I don't know. And he said, listen, there's someone here who wants to talk to you. So Joe Strummer comes on, and he goes, hey, man, I'm so sorry. He goes, listen, I don't know what happened, but he said, maybe you're just not ready. He said, but listen, he said, I'll tell you one thing. He said, you're a world-class drummer. You're just not quite ready yet. So I was like, well, thanks, Joe. And that really gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, Joe Strummer said that, So anyway, I said goodbye. put the phone down, went in the front room and had a cry. I felt I was really fed up.
No.
But then about 6 months later, there was the same sort of thing advert for Jake Burns and the Big Wheel. Just said name guitarist, seats drummer, blah blah blah. Went in and I was so much more confident because I'd worked a lot harder and was more confident when I went into that because I just failed the Clash and I'd been in that environment, and that sort of gave me a little bit more sus about what was going on. So I went in and got the job with Jake Burns and the Big Wheel. So that's a very, very, to make a long story long, there you go. But that's how I got
I love a long story.
From an advert. It was from an advert in Melody Maker, because I just go through every week and go which ones look like, you know, what's happening. So that's how I met Jake. We didn't know each other until I answered the advert in Melody Maker.
You see, there's a lesson there, isn't it? Because I spent a lot of time working in schools, teaching assistant, and we always used to say to the kids, "Oh, if something goes wrong, don't worry about it. You'll learn from it." But it just for the whole of life, that's so true, isn't it? Experiences that happen change how you react to things in the future. And if that hadn't happened to you, would it have gone so well when it came to the Big Wheel?
Well, absolutely. Well, the thing is that Pete Howard, who actually got the job in the Clash, it kind of ruined his life, and he never really did anything after that because he was treated very poorly, mostly by Bernie Rose, the manager. But I think it was a poison chalice, as they say. So I think the fact that I went off and got Jake Burns and the Big Wheel and made my connection with Jake paid dividends many years later when I joined Stiff Little Fingers. So you're absolutely right, and you mustn't judge it in the moment. It's all a learning curve. And you're always learning, and you don't stop learning until the moment you snuff it. So you just keep on building the confidence, and the more experiences you have, the more equipped you are for when you get into a new experience. You think, I've dealt with this sort of thing before. So you've got something to fall back on. You've got a bit of wisdom to fall back on. So get out there and make those mistakes so that you and like you say, you learn from them. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%, totally. Because that's still paying dividends today, obviously, because you're still working with Jake Burns all these years later.
For my sins. Yeah, I think it's 20. I think it's 30 years in all that I've worked with Jake now. 31 years. I did 4 years in Jake Burns and the Big Wheel, and this is my 27th year in Stiff Little Fingers. So yeah,
wow. Because there was
God knows what I did to deserve that.
There's some people who say, "Oh, you get less for murder."
Exactly. Exactly. But the great thing about Stiff Little Fingers is a hard touring band. It's got a great reputation. It's an honor to be part of the band. I love the guys, you know, and it's a very cool band to be in, Stiff Little Fingers, you know.
Yeah, is it ever? Because there was a choice at one point, wasn't there? Because early on you were Stiff Little Fingers and Alarm, and you were kind of juggling the two there.
Well, yeah, I never really was good. The thing was that I got involved with Mike Peters from the Alarm because we had the same manager. Stiff Little Fingers and Mike had the same manager, and Mike was looking for a drummer for his acoustic band. He had like Mike Peters solo band, and so we had the same manager. So Stiff Little Fingers manager said to Mike, you know, give Steve Grantley a go. So
sorry to interrupt. I've just seen Paul's turned up from Kick Down the Doors. Hello, Paul. Thanks for setting this up for us, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, no, I work with Mike because I was the drummer in Stiff Little Fingers. So Stiff Little Fingers was always my main priority. But I did my best to give the Alarm everything that I could. And so, you know, I'd do 6 weeks on the road with Stiff Little Fingers, have 3 days off, and go off with the Alarm for a month. You know, I did a lot of work and did a lot of juggling to try and keep both bands happy. But ultimately, Stiff Little Fingers that's my band, and the Alarm was a secondary thing always. And I never made any bones about it to Mike or the fans or anything. Everybody knew Stiff Little Fingers was my priority.
Yeah. So, and obviously to this day, you are still doing it. So we're only just over a month out, and the tour is going to be starting. So we'll get back to that in a minute though. But oh, hang on,
Okay.
no, there we are on cue. The dates are now scrolling up at the bottom of the screen for everyone who's watching. So you're starting in
fantastic.
Nottingham Rock City. What is it? The March the 11th. Nottingham Rock City is your first one out.
Yeah, March, Bristol, Bristol, Newcastle, Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Newcastle, and then finishing off at London at the Roundhouse, which is one of my favourite gigs to play. I love the Roundhouse.
Yeah, it is a great venue. And Glasgow Barrowlands is already sold out, isn't it? Was that for Paddy's weekend?
That's Paddy's weekend. So both nights we're playing both nights, the Saturday and the Sunday, and they're both sold out. They sold out last year.
Do you know, this is the thing I was going to say. These days, I sound like an old fart, but since COVID days, let's put it like that, when things changed a lot, I'm noticing that bands are announcing tours a long way in advance. I always go when the Damned are playing. I'll always go and see the Damned, and they announced something, and I don't know who it was. They announced in November that the tour was November. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, they've announced next November's tour, like November 2024. It's like a year in advance.
I think that's because for availability on venues, because there's so many bands who are making a living from going out and playing live now, because you don't make any money from selling records. So you make money from selling T-shirts and CDs when you're playing your shows. So that's the way bands make money now, because you don't make any money from selling records, because people, streaming and that has completely killed it. So there are some people who still buy hard copy, and God bless them, and there's people who love vinyl, and that's brilliant. But in general, more and more people, especially younger generations, they get their music from streaming sites and stuff. So that the bands don't make any money from that. And if you want the band to continue, the band's got to make some money. It's not about being a rock star and living a Rolls Royce lifestyle. This is just about everybody getting paid and being able to continue with the band.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a shame. I always think back, and it used to be such a big thing that a new album or a single was coming out, and I've got to get down to Our Price or Woolworths or wherever it was, waiting outside to get that bit of vinyl in your hand. And it used to be such a big deal, and I still like that. I mean, vinyl been making a bit of a comeback recently, hasn't it?
It's definitely made a comeback, because there's a massive waiting list when you want to get your vinyl pressed up, because there's a very few manufacturers, and they're all bogged down by people who want vinyl. People want vinyl, and record players are coming back in vogue, because it's a brilliant thing. It is an absolute brilliant thing. Putting on a record is different from just streaming music or just putting something on your iPad or your computer. There's that whole thing of getting it out and putting it on all that. It's like a ritual. And I think that especially people from our generation, that's what we all grew up with. But it's not enough to we don't make that much money out of records. So now it's touring and everybody's doing it. So the availability on the venues is cut at the time, is cut down. So you have to book further and further in advance, so you can get your tour to make some sort of sense. So you're not going up and down the country the whole time, and you have to book it further and further in advance, because there's so many more bands out doing regular touring.
So in a way, it's a double-edged sword, because it's terrible that the money isn't coming in from the records and you happen to get it from the merch, but for fans, more gigs. See, I'm finding since COVID, it's a struggle sometimes. You think, well, oh my God, they're touring. I need to go to that, and that. And there's just so many gigs out there that it's joyous.
Yeah, and I think that really, ultimately, that's where, if you don't play live shows, you're not a band, and not with backing tracks and all that shit. And you've got to go out and you've got to deliver it. 3 or 4 guys just get up there and play. No safety net, and that's where the fun is. That's where the fun is. And there's nothing more. I mean, I when I go to gigs, sometimes I'm bored, but most of the time I go to gigs and I'm elated when I come out. It sort of, it really cheers you up, and I think that's the best way for people to communicate with the audience is by going out and playing live and seeing the whites of their eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, if it's live and something goes wrong, that's part of the whole experience. That's part of the fun, isn't it?
That's all part of it. And it is you're walking a tightrope, and that's part of it. When it goes wrong, well, this is live. This is what it's all about. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Computerized crap that people are miming along to.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't even start me on these AI pop stars that they're creating now. Don't. Anyway, so let's go back. Let's go back to the real world. Question: do you have a favourite SLF track to play? Is it a gig? Is there one track in particular you always go, oh, I can't wait to get my hands on that one?
Yeah, I really there's quite a few, but I really love playing Wasted Life. I really like playing Wasted Life, and I like playing Johnny Was. That's great. I like playing Roots, Radix Rockers.
Yeah.
And from later on, I really like I like playing a track called Get a Life, which is the title of one of their previous albums, and that track is one of my favourite tracks to play on. So there's a few. I love playing Barbed Wire Love. I love playing Barbed Wire Love because it just changes the atmosphere of the Stiff Little Fingers show. Because obviously Stiff Little Fingers are very serious. There's lots of very serious songs. And,
yeah, of course.
And when you play Barbed Wire Love, it's a little bit more light-hearted, and there's a whole sing-along bit in the middle, and it just lightens the atmosphere. And you just see people almost go back to being their 15-year-old selves. They're just having a ball.
Yeah. Is there a track, or are there tracks that, like, say, I said I go into the Jams a lot, and you're always waiting, there's got to be Love Song, there's got to be Smash It Up. What's the ones in the SLF set that really set the crowd alight?
Well, Roots is one. I feel like the gig really takes off when we play Roots, but we have to play Suspect Device. We have to play Alternative Ulster. We have to play. I think we have to play. We have to play Gotta Get Away Now, because we spent a long time not playing that. Wasted Life. It's very rare that Wasted Life's not in the set list. It's difficult because we have to balance, because it's such a big back catalogue and everybody's got their own favourites. But there are stalwarts that we just have to do. You can't do a Stiff Little Fingers gig without doing Suspect Device and Alternative Ulster.
No.
It'd be like going and seeing. It'd be like going and seeing the Police and they don't play Roxanne. That's one of your biggest hits. You've got to do it. So we have to sort of pepper the set so that the set list has the favourite songs in there, but some new old songs that people may have forgotten about that go down well live and keep everybody's interest. So it's not just the same 15 songs in a different order. So we do try to change it up and add more recent material in the set list, but not too much, because then people go, they played all their new stuff. Where's So I think it's a fine balance. I think most of the time, I hope we get it right. I hope we get it right.
Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it, when a band's been going this long? Like I say, the bands that I go and see are same ilk, and it's like, how are you going to keep everyone happy all the time? Because you'd have to do a show that would be about 2 days long if you were going to fit everything in. That's another thing to ask you. Go on, sorry.
You play something you play something that you think is an old favourite, and half the audience go, "Oh, what's this?" And so it's difficult to get the balance right.
Well, that's the thing, you see, because with the gigs I go to, I see people now that I probably saw at a gig 20, 30 years ago, but now they're bringing their kids along as well. So there's that real mix of generations happening.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. When we play, I would say the first 3 or 4 rows are 18 to 30-year-olds most of the time, and then sort of the older punks at the back. It is cross-generational.
Yeah, definitely is. Although I still like to get down the mosh pit myself. I haven't acted my age yet.
That's great. I mean, I do see people who come into the mosh pit and they do 2 or 3 songs, and then they're knackered, and then they leave. So they come into the mosh pit. They're not there for the whole. They're not there for the whole show.
Oh, you've seen me then. Busted. So I was going to say, so the next tour kicks off at March 11th, but Jake's on tour now, isn't he, with Dead Men Walking?
Well, Jake's doing Dead Men Walking. So they do that. That's the guys from that's Kirk from Spirit Destiny, and the 2 guys from the Ruts, and Jake, and they do acoustic versions of their biggest hits. And Jake's been doing that. Jake's been doing that for quite some time. So that they're out doing that at the moment. Yeah.
Excellent. And then when you got your tour, you're doing Rebellion as well, aren't you, in August?
We're doing Rebellion in August, and there is an American tour coming up that it looks like it's going to be the whole of May, but it's not finalised yet. But that's what we're looking at. We haven't toured America since 2019, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I think I saw, you're doing Punk Rock Bowling in Vegas.
Yes.
I'm sure I saw that.
I think that Punk Rock Bowling, that's the 26th of May. That's going to be the last show, and I think we get over there and start on around the 1st or 2nd of May.
Yeah.
So, but that's always an adventure. A bus tour of America is always an adventure. You never know what's going to happen. So, really looking forward to that. Really looking forward.
It's a shame I'm going to miss you and flipping Vegas, because I'm usually out there and it just doesn't coincide. I'm out there in 4 weeks because I've got to go and see U2. They're on at the Sphere. You've seen and heard about the Sphere in Las Vegas?
I've seen and heard it. I haven't been. The tickets are very expensive, if I'm not mistaken.
They are quite pricey. Yes, I have decided to treat myself this time around because they're only doing a limited residency. But I was going anyway. But yeah, it's just an incredible venue. It just looks like somebody landed a Death Star on the Las Vegas Strip. But inside it, they're saying it's sort of the future of music with all the screens and speakers, and so be quite an experience. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it'll definitely be an experience, but not to criticize U2 because but especially back in the day I was a fan. But the tickets are so expensive, and the film that I've seen, they seem like they're 4 little ants on a stage with this huge thing around them, which I'm sure is awe-inspiring when you first walk in. But my question is it rock and roll? And my answer for me personally is no, it ain't. Because whenever I've been to one of those big shows, I don't feel like I'm participating. I feel like I'm observing a bunch of people having fun. I'm not observing the band. So when I think that when it gets above 12,000 people, and even then you're pushing it, it almost becomes meaningless. We did a big show in Dublin supporting Metallica, and it was like 80,000 people, right? Crate Park, and it felt, there's no communication with the audience. You just see human beings for as far as you can see into the distance, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. And so for me, I would have liked U2 to do what Prince used to do, where Prince used to do his hit and run tours, where they would find a little venue, announce it right at the last minute, go in, play, and then they'd be gone. And that way, I think it'd be fantastic to see U2 in a small club. Now, that might not be possible because the place would get mobbed. But I would have thought that maybe U2 could have come up with something a little bit more rock and roll and interesting than just playing another Enorma Dome, and really, a residency in Las Vegas where stars go to die. That's what it seems like to me. Now, I know loads of people have done it. So Sting's done it. Well done, Sting. I know that, but loads of people have gone there and done residencies. But for a rock band like U2, I thought that maybe it was a bit early for them to do that. But who the fuck am I to criticize U2? It's just for me personally, you have every right. For me, it's not rock and roll, and I think they're great. I love, especially the early stuff. I really love. I love the way Larry plays drums. I think Bono's a fantastic frontman. I love the way the Edge plays guitar. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But I just thought it just seemed too much of a money-making scheme rather than being about rock and roll. They've got so much money now; they could do whatever they want. They could have done something really innovative.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of hoping that sort of to see that, and then I heard they were going to announce some kind of tour, and I thought, it'd be nice to completely switch it back the other way and do small venues, which actually brings me on to something I was going to ask you, and you've sort of already answered it, because I know you've done some massive gigs. Did you do San Siro Stadium at some point?
Did San Siro Stadium with the Alarm, and then we did Rome Olimpico Stadium as well.
Yeah.
And,
so that was going to be what I was going to ask you, was how you feel about the bigger venues, or whether you prefer the more intimate, personal touch. So you've sort of covered that for me before I even got there.
Well, yeah, I prefer that. The Barrowland, that's about 2,000. That's got a fantastic atmosphere, and you can feel it on stage. You can feel it coming from the audience. There's a real connection. So London Roundhouse, that's 4,000, but they're right the way round you, and you've got a really intimate feel because they come right round the side of the stage. And I like that. I don't like it when people just seem so distant, and they might as well watch it on a screen. You might as well watch it on a screen. So and I did a pub gig a little while ago, and people were right there, and I love that. That's you know.
I get it.
I like it. It just seems more real when it's a smaller venue. I know it's all about making money and all that, but you know, you could do. Why could you two do 20 nights at the Hammersmith Odeon? Like,
what can they play my back garden? They play in my back garden. I make them a nice cup of tea and give them a packet of biscuits. I don't know what's wrong with them. I wrote to Bono. I asked him. He hasn't got back to me yet.
You could still make money, though. You could still make money, and you could do interesting things. I think, you know, that's how I feel about it.
For sure, that's all right. And the other thing before, because I really want to move on to Zed Hedz. I'm going far too long on SLF. I apologise.
That's all right.
Yes, Glenn Matlock. So he's joining you as special guest. It seems like every time I turn around, Glenn Matlock is popping up. That guy is so busy because he's always with Blondie. He's doing his own stuff, and now he's with you. Forgive my stupidity. When it says special guest Glenn Matlock, is he coming on with you, or is he doing his own set as support?
No, he's doing his own set with his electric band as our support. So he is our special guest support band, which seems really weird to me. You know, I've worked with Glenn. We've recorded together, and you know, so I know Glenn. But it's really weird having one of the Sex Pistols as your support act. It's like a couple of years ago, Paul Cook and the Professionals were our support act.
Yes.
So you know, and that's really, you know, because I'm a massive Pistols fan, right? So I really have to be cool around Paul. Like, oh, I love you. You're great. I love you. You know, so it's really weird for me to have, like, you know, to have Paul as a support act. Really, you know. But I mean, the thing about Glenn is a working musician. That's what I like about him. He grafts. You know, he does acoustic solo sets. He's got his electric band. You know, he does Blondie. The International Swingers, there's another band that he does with Clem Burke and a couple of other guys, James Stevenson. So the guy is a player, and he really doesn't bother him whether it's a small little venue and it's a little art centre, or whether it's, you know, a great big open air festival. He's a bass playing, gigging guy, and I really like that. You know, very talented, great songwriter, still going strong.
Do you know what? I can use that as a soundbite, can't I? Because I'm thinking I need to get him on the show so we can put that out as a soundbite and go, look, you know, we're just saying you need to come on here so that we can talk to you about all this stuff. Don't you agree, Steve?
I absolutely do agree. I think you should. You should get Glenn Matlock on the show. It's Glenn, you know. So Glenn was such a big part of the melodic makeup of Nevermind the Bollocks. And his songwriting prowess just elevated it to another level, I think. And so you had Jones's guitar style, which was brilliant, Johnny's amazing vocals and the lyrics that he wrote, and then there was a melodic sensibility that Glenn brought to the party. And then obviously you had Paul Cook, as you know, as solid a drummer as you can get, almost like a great band that. A bit of the sophistication of the Pistols, and they are sophisticated musically, came from Glenn, I think.
Yeah, agreed, totally agreed. But yes, we'll have him on here, and we'll discuss that further in the future for sure. So I need to move on to Zed Hedz though, because this is what we want to talk about. Because you, amazingly, introduced me to a band that it sounds ridiculous that I've never actually listened to, and you'll probably berate me for this. I've never actually listened to the Cramps.
Oh, wow.
Never. I know. And when I heard about your track, Poison Ivy, Where Did You Go, and started looking into that, I'm like, have I ever listened to them? My God, what have I been missing all these years? They're bloody amazing. I'm sorry, I'm years and years behind. I'm decades out of touch here, but we need to talk about this.
I think that if you've discovered the Cramps and you feel like that, boy, you've got some fun times coming, because there's all those albums for you to discover and the great tracks, and there's all that, and there's loads of footage online. And they're one of my they've become one of my favorite bands. And at first, I didn't know what they were about, really. You know, I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't know whether they were kind of a joke band at the start, and I was like, what is that? But I felt very attracted to it. The sound was, I kept going back to it again and again and again, and then I was like, I listen to nothing but the Cramps these days, and then I realised that it all harked back to the early rock and roll that you hear. I heard on the radio, and surf rock that was successful and was, you know, in the late '60s, and so it was sort of like echoes of it in my past. And I just loved the image of the band. I loved the fact that they were pure rock and roll, not a rock band, a rock and roll band. And obviously, as we all know, they are different. It's not punk rock, it's rock and roll. And I really find it attractive. And I think that I wrote that for Poison Ivy because I think that, I've said this before, but she's like a great unsung feminist icon. You know, she played the lead guitar in the band. She co-wrote all the songs. She was the main producer of the records. She was one of the main parts of the image of the band. I mean, who doesn't want Poison Ivy in their band? She looked amazing, sounded amazing, acted amazing with that attitude on stage. Just brilliant. And like nothing else. Now I know they had echoes of all the 1950s stuff and the surf bands and all that stuff, but no one else was doing that. They sort of created, for me, they created that modern genre of psychobilly. That was down to them. And I found it very inspirational. So it was her 70th birthday last year, so that's why I wrote. I thought I'm going to write a song for Poison Ivy, and then I wrote another one. I ended up writing 6 songs for Poison Ivy. And so I took 4 of them and put them on the EP, and 2 more are going to go on the album that we're recording later on this year. So she was a massive inspiration, and I just wanted to give a nod to Poison Ivy because where's her Lifetime Achievement Award? Why isn't she part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You know?
Yeah, agreed.
And you talk about feminism and you talk about Chrissy Hynde. What about Poison Ivy? You know?
Well, look at going down
I think she's been sadly overlooked.
Yeah, going down the rabbit hole on YouTube, like I say, because of you and looking into it, I'm looking at her like, dear God, this woman, she's just incredible. And I can't believe all these years I've missed it. So for anyone that doesn't know, because anyone who knows about Steve Grantley and Zed Hedz will know what we're talking about. But we've moved on now. For anyone that's losing track, Steve has another band, Steve Grantley and Zed Hedz. Now, the first and he brought out this single that is a tribute to Poison Ivy from the Cramps in honor of her 70th birthday. What I want to ask you first, though, about Zed Hedz is why has the name changed so many times?
Oh well, because I'm fickle. It was well.
Fair
what
enough.
happened was first of all, everything was ready to go. Myself and John Magna were originally RTZ, right? And and everything was ready to go. And right at the last moment, we found out that there'd been a band called RTZ in the late 70s. So we added the word global underneath to make it RTZ Global. So rather than saying, you know, some bands go Mission UK, RTZ Global, right? So we did that. We put 2 albums out, and then John disappeared off to America, and I didn't do anything for about 10 years. And then I wanted to do another record, and I thought, well, I'll do it as RTZ, but I'll spell out the letter Z, Z-E-D, to make it different from RTZ Global because it wasn't the same guys. And so we stuck with that. So it was the RTZ, RTZED, RTZ. And we put out 3 or 4 albums under that name. And it was very much a rock band. And I got tired of that. And I wrote these 4 songs for Poison Ivy in a completely rock and roll style, which is what I was leaning to a lot. And I thought, this is the direction I want to go in. It's completely different to RTZ. It's not all the same guys because there's only 3 of us in the Zed Hedz. So I thought it was time to change the name. And I also wanted to trade off my name because if we've got anything going for us, some people know who I am. So it might get us a bit more attention. So Steve Grantley and the Zed Hedz. And I wanted it to be like, you know, Bill Haley and the Comets or, you know, Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. It's got that old-fashioned rock and roll sound to it. So that's why I changed the name.
Okay. So
it is confusing, though, Cathy. I agree with you, Cathy. It's bloody confusing, but that's where we're at. But that I don't.
You start researching, and I'm like, hang on a minute, is it RTZ? Is it RTZ Global? Is it Zed Hedz?
Well,
but now we've got Steve Grantley and the Zed Hedz.
Steve Grantley and the Zed Hedz, and it will remain that way. I can't see me changing it again.
No,
it's just that it was a complete musical departure from what we've done before. You know,
yeah.
And I was like, well, this not, because I said to the lads, I've written these songs. It's not very RTZ. I said, it's, you know, and two of the lads went, oh yeah, I really like that. That's great. Let's, you know, and so I was having a problem getting a drummer, because I used to, when we did RTZ stuff, I would go up the front of the guitar and sing and play the guitar, and that was getting increasingly more difficult and more expensive to get a drummer to take my place. Right. And so I was thinking one day, how can I present these songs and not have to go through that whole thing? So eventually I came up with when we play live, I do a Slim Jim Phantom. I stand up and play and I sing at the same time. So I'm playing drums, which people know me for, but I'm also singing, and it just seems to work. And it's a three-piece. Got John Magner on guitar, James Aline on bass, and it works. And that's how we're going to make an album. We're going to go out on tour, and that's how it's going to be from now on. Yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you. So the last thing that came out was obviously the Poison Ivy single, or the EP that came out in December of last year. So, right. And I know that so far, I'm just looking at my notes, you've got one date set up, which is Spice of Life in Soho on the 13th of July. I know you've got a gig there. Have you got any others coming up?
There's some possible festival dates, but I have to wait and see what's going on with Stiff Little Fingers. But what I will do is when the album's finished, because when we do the Zed Hedz, we record quite fast. It's more back to basics, rock and roll approach to recording. So once the album's finished, then I'll be looking for either a support tour, or so go out with the professionals or the Ruts, whoever will have us, or do some solo dates, or do both. So we'll do Zed Hedz dates and on a support tour, because Stiff Little Fingers are going to be, after this year, Stiff Little Fingers are going to be slowing down. We're not stopping, but we are going to be slowing down. And so as Stiff Little Fingers sort of slow down, I'm going to ramp up, because that's my life, is playing music and writing music and recording and going out and playing. So I'll be ramping up the Zed stuff as Stiff Little Fingers calms down a bit.
Right. And you said, so are you in the studio now? You're in the process of a new album coming out?
No, we're not yet. We're writing at the moment. So so December we put out the EP. It went very, very well. We all looked at each other and said, we want to do more of this. So we've all been writing. The guys have been sending me backing tracks and riffs and stuff. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going over to John Magner's house to do some demos, and we're gonna start collating an album. And I think that we'll record it in late summer, early maybe September, and it may come out this year. We'll see. But I don't plan on slowing. I don't personally plan on slowing down. That's not
good. I'm glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that. We'll have to get out and see you when you're on tour then, won't we?
Absolutely, Cathy. It'll be great to see you.
We will be there. So the other thing I was going to talk to you about briefly, I've just realised the time, and I'm so sorry, we are overrunning slightly. You're all right for a little bit longer?
No, that's fine. Is
that all right? Yeah. Because two interesting facts I wanted to let people know who don't know about Steve Grantley and the Zed Hedz. What I was super impressed by in the past, you had a track on the tribute album for The Clash, and you also did Blitzkrieg Bop that was in a Ramones documentary. Are these two facts correct?
Yes, they are correct.
Wow.
A record label was putting together a tribute album to The Clash, and they asked us to do a track. So we did Guns Brixton, but we didn't do it as a reggae song. We tore it apart and did this insane industrial rock version of it. Because we did, and what happened was the record label that were putting it out said, "This is really good. Would you do a whole album of punk rock tributes. And we went, "Not really." And they went, "Look, there's some money in it," and we were skint. So we went, "All right, then we'll do it." So we got halfway through recording the album, and the record company went broke. So we were like, "Well, let's continue with this," because we were into the project and we had all the tracks lined up. So we finished off the album and we called it Honor the Barbarian, right? It's called Honor the Barbarian. Yep. But we're like, well, what are we going to do with it? So we just left it on a shelf for 15 years and we didn't put it out. And then about 6 years ago, I put it on CD, and it was released, Honor the Barbarian, and it's a whole album of punk rock covers. In fact, I've got it here. We do Guns of Brixton, I Want to Be Free, A New Rose, Blitzkrieg Bop, Orgasm Addicts, Pretty Green, Safe as Houses, 5 Minutes, the Stranglers Tune, Germ-Free Adolescence, Babylon is Burning, and Happy House. And it's that sounds like my ideal. Hang on. Where can we buy this from? Is this on your website? Well, at the moment, that's the last copy left.
Then you need to re-release it.
We're gonna repress, and so that album will be available soon. But we got a sale coming up soon. So that is the last copy of Honor the Barbarian. So that's going to be on the sale. That's going to be in the sale price. But we had real fun recording those tracks, and we took them apart and put them back in a completely different way. But yeah, it is true. We have got. So there is a whole album's worth of RTZ punk rock covers.
Oh, there you go. Look at him in the comments there backstage. He wants it as well. we're after that CD. Right, okay. We need that.
Okay. Well, I like I say, we are gonna repress. So that's gonna be one of the things that we'll be doing. I'm thinking about this is something interesting. I'm thinking you're talking about vinyl and stuff. The Poison Ivy EP only came out on CD. But we had so many people get in contact with me and say, "I'd love this on vinyl." So I think that over this year, I'm going to put the Poison Ivy EP onto vinyl.
Oh, nice idea. Yeah, I think
what colours do you think the vinyl should be, Kath? What would you say?
Red. He's saying red. I'd say purple.
I think. See, I've done a red one. We've done red. So I think I might do purple because it's kind of in keeping with the whole Cramps vibe.
I'm thinking, it kind of goes with the Cramps vibe, doesn't it? Yeah, go purple. Right.
Yeah. I'll only probably do 200, and that'll be it.
But this is good. My shopping list is growing here. So it's like birthday presents, Christmas presents. We're just going to come to you. You're going to re-release that CD. You're going to bring that out on vinyl. We're sorted, mate. We are sorted. And then, of course, the next thing we'd have to do would be to buy one of your 2 books. Because do other people that are watching know that Steve Grantley is also a well-known author? Now, where did that come from?
The only thing I was good at in school. I was, I was rubbish in school, apart from I was good at English. I couldn't be bothered. I knew I was going to be a drummer. I didn't give a damn about school. I knew I'm going to be a drummer. But I went to the careers advice guy, and he said, "So what do you want to be?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be a drummer." And he was like, "Yeah, but it's very difficult." I went, "Yeah, I know, but I'm going to do it." And he was like, "Really?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm going to be like John Bonham." So he said, "If you don't make it," and I said, "Well, I am going to make it." He said, "Well, if you don't, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm quite good at English, so I'd like to be a journalist." So he said, "Well, that might be a route that you should go down because very few people make it in the music industry." And he's right, but I wanted to let him put me off. So anyway, it was the only thing that I was any good at in school, and so I came up with an idea for a drummer book, and I took it to a publisher, and they liked the idea, but eventually they didn't do it. But they said, "Listen, we know that you and Alan Parker, who was sort of my co-writer, we know you're big Who fans. We want to do a song-by-song guide to the Who. Would you like to write it?" So that's how I got it all came about by accident, really. So I wrote the Who book, and in between writing the Who book, which took 6 years, Alan and I wrote a book about Slade, the band Slade. It was called Come On Feel the Noise, because it was No, there hadn't been a book about Slade for 25 years, and that Carlton Books, who were the commissioning editors, they were doing a whole series of 70s focused books, you know, and so we took them the idea of so it was Alan's idea. It was Alan's idea to do a book about Slade, and I wrote it.
Any plans for any more books about anybody else?
Well, after meeting Paul Cook, I realised that he's the only one of the Pistols who hasn't written a book, right? And I think that I don't think he wants to do one. But if I was going to write a book, I think that would be worthwhile, because I think that Paul, you know, the Pistols, Paul's not only a musical icon, he's sort of part of British fabric of history, you know, what the Pistols did and how they changed the country, and you know, so I think that Paul's got a great story to tell, sitting at the back watching all this madness unfold. We've heard Glenn and we've heard Steve's and we've heard Johnny. Johnny's done 2 or 3 books, and I think it would be great for Paul to write one, and I'd love to be the guy that helped him write it. That would be something I would see being worthwhile. The only thing about writing books is it's a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, and you really do have to be into the subject. If you're not, it's just tedious, you know. So that would be the one thing that I would. That's the one thing that I would write, because I think that people would be interested in Paul's side of the story.
Oh, definitely. But yeah, like you say, you have to really immerse yourself in it. The amount of research and detail you've got to get right is immense, I imagine.
Yeah, and you want to get it right, and you want to get the right atmosphere in the book so that people want to turn the page and all that stuff. Even like when we were doing it, I was like, how do you make a song by song guide to the music of the Who? How do you make that interesting? So that was always my goal, was to make it a page turner. How do you do that? You know, so there were certain techniques that I used, and it sold well. I mean, it's been translated into French, so it's pretty good. It's not bad from a kid from a comprehensive school who didn't know anything. You know, I was terrible at maths. I was terrible at geography and history and technical drawing and all that stuff. Couldn't be bothered with it. But I used to write stories in my English class, and I got good grades. But other than that, I was rubbish.
Yeah, you and me both. I think English was the only thing I was any good at. I still can't add up to this day.
Yeah, I think I was almost remedial when it came to maths. But you won't always have a calculator with you, you know. Oh yeah, yes we have.
An abacus back in my day. I'm so old.
But when they used to say that when you were in school, you won't always have a calculator with you. You'll have to do mental arithmetic. Well, we have got calculators with us now. So
yeah, I think most people have phones and they probably have calculators on them.
Yeah, exactly.
So before we wrap things up, because I'm aware we've gone over, and my apologies again, we have a couple of subjects that we always cover near the end of Reignite, and one of them is sometimes no, you're talking bollocks, or people have got an interesting story about it. So the question is, do you believe in ghosts, and have you ever seen a ghost?
Oh Jesus!
You can say it's all bollocks if you want to. That's fine.
No, I don't. I don't believe in ghosts, and I've never seen a ghost.
Fair enough.
I would love there to be ghosts, and I've heard some very convincing ghost stories from people who are quite credible people who told ghost stories. But I personally haven't seen one. I think if I did see one, I would be scared stiff, and I would believe then. But I don't actually believe in ghosts.
See, that's my problem. For years, I always say, oh, yeah. And then you start looking into these things and you start researching these things and you look at all the things people have put out there. And the older I get, the more and more cynical I'm getting. I'm like you, I want to believe it, but I need to see something that gives me some sort of proof. And so far, not seen it. No. So that would lead me down to something else, because you said if you saw one, it would scare you. Is there anything that scares you?
Oh, yeah, loads of things.
Go on. You got any phobias?
I've got no phobia. I mean, I'm not afraid of flying or anything like that. I think I'm afraid of humiliation.
That's reasonable.
So you know, I'm afraid that I'll make a terrible mistake on stage and look like a fool in front of everybody. So I work really hard to make sure that I don't let my bandmates down or the audience down or myself down, because I think that, you know, I'm afraid that I'll show weakness. That's another fear, that I would show fear, and they'd go, yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I think I'm afraid. You know, this is a very deep conversation. I think I'm afraid of dying.
Really?
Every day I wake up and I think I've got another day. It's another day of consciousness.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how bad things are. I'm alive, and I've got, you know, arms and legs and two eyes, and there's sun shining, and you know, and I don't ever want that to end. So I don't think that I'm afraid of dying. Pretty heavy subject, but yeah.
I just remember a quote. I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody in the chat will tell me. I've seen you all popping up in the chat. Hello, thank you for all sticking with us from Germany, from Japan, from Canada, from Spain. I've seen you all. Thank you for coming. But I'm sure they'll tell me if I'm wrong. But I think the quote was, "Every day above ground is a good day," and that was Michael Monroe, who that guy is a legend in himself.
Yeah, he is a legend. Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, you're alive and you're above ground, and life is hard for all of us. We never know what other people are going through. But what I do think is, I wake up and I'm like, I'm alive. I know it sounds really corny, but I'm alive. Got another day.
I do. So I'm you're just glad to be here. I'm still here. That means I can still do stuff. I can still explore stuff. I can still learn stuff. I've still got a chance out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Completely.
And I think that you must always be optimistic. You know, I've had all of us. We've all had terrible times, and I've had times where everything has fallen apart, and I've rued the day I haven't picked up a pair of drumsticks, I didn't get that job, or, you know, whatever it is, and I felt really down and terrible and you know, almost at a depressed state. But if you keep a positive mental state, you will bounce back. It takes time. Nothing comes quick, nothing comes easy, but eventually you'll bounce back.
That's it.
And you have to remain optimistic. You know, and I think you have to get your dreams in line with what's possible. You must always dream big, but you know, I would say that I'm afraid of not fulfilling my potential as well. You know,
well, as long as you're still here, then you can carry on fulfilling all of your dreams, can't you? That's the main thing. We're still here. We still keep going, and who knows what the future brings for any of us. But what I would like to ask before you move on to your future is another big question that we always ask our guests, and I think you know it's coming. It's what's your favourite biscuit? Do you like tea or coffee? And do you dunk?
Right. So I am an absolute tea head, right?
Right.
I drink tea. I love coffee, and I like coffee when I go out. If I go out, I'm going to go to one of the big coffee shops, you know, Costa Coffee or whatever, and I'm going to get coffee. But when I'm at home, I drink tea. The day hasn't begun until I drink tea. I like my two favourite biscuits are rich tea and digestives, and I do dunk.
You do dunk. It can be risky with the rich tea.
I love tea. Yeah, I absolutely love tea. I'm a real teapot. And when we're on tour, me and Jake are exactly the same. So when we're on the tour bus in America, we're like, every 3/4 of an hour, fancy a cup of tea? Well, I'll just have one. Oh, go on then, put the kettle on. And then I say to Jake, I'm going to put the kettle on. He goes, oh, I'll just have one. What? And then he goes, oh yeah, make this one. But me and Jake are both tea heads. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
But have you ever had these? And if you can see this, you said rich teas. These are chocolate rich teas. Now, Sainsbury's used to make them and they stopped, and they now sell them at Aldi. They are amazing.
They are. I did used to eat those, and they are absolutely incredible. But I don't eat them anymore because they got milk chocolate on them, and I'm a Ponzi vegan.
Oh, of course. Oh, I've been looking for these for years and years and years, and now I can't stop bloody eating them, and I'm going to.
Oh no, they're great. They're really good. They're really good. They're really good.
And all right,
that's like
then
that's one of my guilty pleasures. Tea and biscuits, mate. Tea and biscuits. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you know what though? In the grand scheme of things, of all the terrible things that we could do to our bodies and ourselves, a cup of tea and a couple of Vickies is not the worst crime, is it?
It's not the worst, is it? No, it's not the worst. And I would eat. Yeah, you know, I'd have real difficulty giving up tea. It's like I say, my day hasn't begun until I've had a cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm the same with the black coffee. So all right, so then you're rounding off your day. You've had your tea and biscuits. You've had your rich teas. You've had your digestives. It's got to the evening time, Steve. And now we're all going down the pub, as they say. So, what are you getting in your? I'm buying the round. What are you having? And are you having any snacks?
Oh, I like a bag of cheese and onion crisps, and I'll have a bottle of Peroni. Thank you very much.
Very nice.
And sometimes I have a couple of weeks on Guinness. I like Guinness because it's full of iron and stuff. So I like them.
Guinness is good for you.
But when I'm away, most of the time I drink bottles of Heineken because you can get Heineken right across America, right across Europe, and so we, Jake and I, we both, that's our sort of go-to drink, bottles of Heineken.
Fair enough. And when you're in the pub, would you ever get yourself involved in anything in the pub? So you could just go to the pub, sit there with your mates, have a drink, have your packet of cheese and onion crisps. But what if there was darts, there was pool, there was quiz, there was a karaoke going on? Would you get involved in any of those things, or do you just go to the pub to sit down, have a quiet beer, and have a chat?
I go to have a laugh with the lads. I go to converse with the chaps. I don't play darts or pool. I'm shite at those. I don't play cards. I think I haven't got the patience for it, and I'm not very good at it. And I don't really like doing things that I'm not even reasonably good at. So no, that's not for me. I like to go down and talk to the lads, have a laugh, take the piss out of each other. And you know, they say men don't show their feelings enough. Well, I go down the pub with some mates. Was down there last night, but you know, the guys are chatting about one of them's not been too well, and we were talking about that. It's not all cars and girls and rock and roll. We do actually talk to each other about how we're feeling and what's going on in our lives. It's just that we're not overly emotional about it. But I don't like. The only thing I'll do is put inappropriate songs on the jukebox. That's what I like to do.
Such as, give us an example.
Well, went into a biker bar in Texas, put ABBA on, and they were playing. They were playing all you know, southern country, but rock and roll and all that stuff. And I was putting on, you know, gimme a man after midnight, and thank you for the music. And while I'm at the jukebox, the guy came over and said, "Hey man, what you putting this shit on for?" Because I did that thing. In America, you can do this thing. You probably know. You can put a thing where you jump the queue, but you have to pay $5. So I was jumping the queue and putting my ABBA stuff on in front of their bad company and you know, ZZ Top, which I do love both those bands, but I was doing this for a laugh, and like the rest of the band standing at the bar laughing. He used to come over and he goes, "Hey man, we don't like this sort of stuff in this bar." And I was like, "Oh shit, I've really." And then when I looked over and their girlfriends were dancing, and I went, "They do though." And then he went to me, he said, "Where are you from, man?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm from London, mate." I said, "I'm over here playing with a band." I said, we were touring with the Offspring. Stiff Litle Fingers.
All right, yeah.
And he went, "Hey man, are you playing with the Offspring tomorrow?" And I went, "Yeah, hey, we got tickets." And then it was all right, but it was touch and go for a second. You know, it was like going to a biker bar and put on, you know, gimme a man after midnight. That don't go down too well.
Get the ladies happy though.
or I'll go into a very sedate bar. We go into a very sedate bar and I'll put Motorhead on.
Yes. So see, one extreme to another there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly.
Mix
That's
it
the
up
thing,
a
though,
bit.
yeah, it's it. That so yeah, that's what I do in bars. But I don't play like I don't play pool or snooker or any of those things. I don't play card games.
Right,
It's just not
fair enough.
it's
It's
not
just
for me.
it's just to sit down, chill, have a chat, have a bit of beer, have some cheese and onion crisps, and yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, before we let you go, as we've hideously overrun, and I'm looking at the clock, can I just finish off by giving you a couple of random questions? This is what we do to
Yeah.
finish the show. We just choose number between 1 and 60. Don't worry, we're not doing all 60. We'll do 3 or 4.
Okay.
Give me a number between 1 and 60. I'll fire some random questions at you, and then we will let you get on your way.
Okay. 8.
Number 8. Okay. Ooh, what is your favourite way to travel?
Train. I
Yeah.
like a train journey. I like a train journey because you're comfortable. You can look out the window. You can go to the and get drinks and stuff.
Yeah.
You can go for a wee. I like a train journey. I did a train journey. I've done a couple across Europe, and then when we've been in Japan, we've gone from Tokyo out and gone past Mount Fuji and all that stuff. They've got amazing trains, the bullet train and all that stuff. So yeah, train journey, train. I like traveling by train.
Agree, brilliant. Go fire me another number.
20.
20. Ooh, are you any good at any of the following? Gardening, cooking, or DIY?
I'm no good at gardening because I hate it. I'm no good at DIY because I hate it. But I'm not a bad cook because being a Ponzi vegan, I've had to make sure that when I'm eating at home, I make tasty dishes and that and I'm not just eating for the sake of eating because it's fuel. I'm actually enjoying it. So. And I've spent many times living on my own, so I'm not a bad cook. So I can cook, but I hate gardening and I hate DIY.
All right, but one day we're going to see the Steve Grantley cookbook then, aren't we? That can be added to your list of books.
The Ponzi Vegan Guide to Tasty Dishes.
That's a bestseller right there. Right, go on, give me one more, and then I'll let you get on your way.
60.
60. Okay. What was your best or worst holiday? Can you think of a disastrous one or a fabulous one?
I had it was both in the same holiday.
Okay.
I went to the Gambia in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
and I was a place called the Badala Bar, and I was playing djembe. That's the mother drum. That's the round drum that the Africans play. And and they were going. I was going. Can I have a go? Can I have a go? Can I have a go? They said, we'll teach you. And I said, give us a go. So once I started playing, they were like, this is great. So I spent 3 days on the beach with these guys playing djembe, but I'm sweating, and I didn't replace the salts and sugars, and I dehydrated, and I was very, very, very ill, and there was no doctor. And my wife at the time, I sort of pulled round by her giving me dry toast and jam and drinking Sprite and plus water, because all those things together rehydrated me and gave me the salts and sugars, because I completely dehydrated myself, and all the electrolytes had gone, all the salts and sugars. So those foods gave it back, and I was well again. But at one point, it was looking really rough. I was looking really rough. So yeah, that was my best holiday and my worst holiday in one thing.
Wow, all in one.
The Gambia and Africa. Yeah.
Crikey. Right, and if I can just ask my producer, Ashley Grant from Stereotypes, if you could scroll Steve's socials along the bottom of the screen, so that if anybody wants to keep up with Steve, check out what Steve's up to, follow him here, there and everywhere, and send him messages and drive him mad, all your socials are coming up at the bottom of the screen. And in the show notes, I've also put the links in there. So if you haven't caught them as they're scrolling across, then go to the show notes and they're all listed there. Click on the links and it will take you through to all of Steve's stuff. And so that just remains for me to say, Steve, I am so sorry we overran by so much, mate. I apologise.
It's been a pleasure, Cathy. It's been an
I've
absolute.
really enjoyed having
joy.
you on. I get about several people in the comments who said, "Can you just stay on for another hour because we're loving this?" So
Oh, wow.
thank you so much. You've been a fabulous guest.
That doesn't get said very often.
Listen, you look back at this and read all the comments that have been coming up about you. You've been incredibly popular today, and we have loved having you on. We really appreciate you taking the time. Fabulous.
I've really enjoyed being here. Thank you so much, Cathy, for asking me to do it. And let's do it again when the album comes out.
We would love to have you back on, and then we will come out and see you on your own tour as well. Love to do that.
Give me a shout for that. Give me a shout for that.
Will do. Brilliant. For that. Fantastic. All right, Steve, we will not keep you any longer. We will let you go and get on with your weekend, and just say thank you ever so much for joining us on Reignite, and you are welcome back here anytime.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much to you and Ashley and everybody who's commented, and everybody. It's see you in March, and
see you out on the road. So I'll say to everybody else that's watching, thank you. I have seen all your comments coming up, but Steve's been so interesting. I didn't want to interrupt him to mention things that you were all talking about in the comments. But like I said, I know we've had Japan, Canada, Germany, Spain, all the countries are represented there. So we've gone international with you today, Steve, and thank you all for joining us. All that is left for me to say is, everybody, thank you for coming to Reignite. We will be back soon. Maybe it'll be with Glenn Matlock. We'll have to see what we can do there. We'll have to work on that.
Let's see. Well, I'll tell him, because I'll be seeing him in March, so I'll tell him.
I was going to say, give him a nudge for me. Yeah, brilliant. I'll drop him a line and I'll get you to give him a nudge. So hopefully everyone will be back with Glenn Matlock soon. But enjoy your weekend. Thank you everyone for watching, and see you all soon. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye all.